This morning comes from the Gospel according to Luke chapter 19, beginning at verse 1. Jesus entered Jericho and was passing through it. A man there was named Zacchaeus. He was a chief tax collector and was rich. He was trying to see who Jesus was, but on account of the crowd he could not, because he was short in stature. So he ran ahead and climbed a sycamore tree to see him, because he was going to pass that way. When Jesus came to the place, he looked up and said to him, "Zacchaeus, hurry and come down, for I must stay at your house today." So he hurried down and was happy to welcome him. All who saw it began to grumble and said, "He is gone to be the guest of one who is a sinner." Zacchaeus stood there and said to the Lord, "Look, half of my possessions, Lord, I will give to the poor. And if I have defrauded anyone of anything, I will pay back 4 times as much." Then Jesus said to him, "Today salvation has come to this house, because he too is a son of Abraham. For the Son of Man came to seek out and to save the lost." The word of the Lord. My wife and I were some of the fortunate ones. Neither of our children were climbers. They didn't climb out of their cribs. They did not climb on bookcases. They generally stayed on the ground where we put them and never gave us those heart-stopping moments some mother and fathers regularly endure when they look up and see their child dangling from some high precipice. My parents, however, were not so fortunate. I was a climber, and the world was my jungle gym. My philosophy as a child is, why walk up a flight of stairs when there is a perfectly good pole to shimmy up it right next to it? I knew how to climb on the roof of my house, my friends' houses, the church. I climbed every tree in the neighborhood every chance I got. Even as a young child, I figured out how to cross our entire house without my feet ever touching the floor. I'd climb on bookcases and backs of chairs and furniture. You see, for a climber, the conventional, safe method of getting ahead is also the dull, routine way. Climbers are always looking for shortcuts, adventure, and a way to attain new heights. To a climber, an obstacle in the path of life is not a dead end to be lamented, but it is a challenge to be overcome. So you can imagine my excitement when I first heard the story of Zacchaeus as a child. Here was Zacchaeus, short, like me as a youngster, a climber like me. And he had not let himself be pushed around by all those tall people in the world, but he had figured out a way to see Jesus. He climbed a tree. He didn't let the obstacles of life leave him at a dead end. He climbed a tree. He overcame the obstructions of life that blocked his way and was able to attain new heights because he was a climber like me, and he saw Jesus. Now, every adult who has ever tried to teach me the story wants me to believe that Zacchaeus made a fool out of himself because he climbed that tree. And they want to turn Jesus into a parent like them who calls Zacchaeus down in order to set him on the safe, conventional path of life. But we climbers know better. You see, Jesus did not look up in that tree and see a man making a fool of himself. Instead, he saw a son of Abraham. And rather than calling him down from climbing, Jesus gave him a new, far more rewarding climb to tackle. For Zacchaeus was not a fool. Rather, he was lost. He was lost because he was a social climber. That is, he got what he wanted by climbing over people. We all know the type. For social climbers like Zacchaeus, people are obstacles on the path that leads to what they want. They will often leave a trail of broken promises, broken relationships, broken people behind as they climb up the backs of others to reach their goals. As the chief tax collector, Zacchaeus not only profited from Rome's oppressive tax collections, he also would have wielded authority that kept him rich and in power, but in so doing left his fellow Jews poor and out of power. Did Zacchaeus suffer guilt because he benefited from the oppression of his own people? Is that why he sought to see Jesus? We don't know. Luke does not tell us why he went up that tree. For all we know, Zacchaeus climbed that tree out of sheer stubbornness. He may simply have refused to be blocked by the crowd and sought another way to get what he wanted. He was, after all, a climber. Still, for whatever reason he climbed that tree, we know why Jesus called him down. Even though we are not told what took place in Zacchaeus' home when Jesus went there, we know that one who had been lost was now found. We know that Jesus came to seek and to save the lost, even those who were held in contempt by others. So, were Zacchaeus' climbing days now over? By no means. As I said, Jesus called him down in order to give him a far more rewarding climb to tackle. He was no longer lost. He would no longer climb over people to get what he wanted because he was headed in a new direction, but he was still a climber. Now, though, it was his past sin and his abundance of ill-gotten material possessions that proved to be obstacles to his full restoration back into the community of faith. But remember, he was a climber. By pledging to share his ill-gotten wealth with the needy and making restitution to those he had cheated, Zacchaeus climbed over the obstacles that had once been his goal, and in so doing became a true blessing to his community. For in the end, salvation is never just a private matter. Instead, salvation builds a community of faith, the Church of Jesus Christ, fills it with adopted sons and daughters of Abraham, and through them, through us, blesses all the families of the earth. This is our challenge today, friends. I challenge you to be a climber, not a social climber who treats people as obstacles to your material goals, but a climber who does not let any material goal become an obstacle to a life that blesses others. This is the challenge that we face today on Commitment Sunday. This is the challenge of making a financial pledge to your church. Like Zacchaeus, we too can respond to Christ by pledging a portion of our material possessions, no matter how they were gained, as a means to build up the community of faith. For faith in Christ frees us from serving material possessions and makes us master over them. Faith in Christ frees us to manage our wealth as a blessing from God that we both enjoy ourselves and freely share with those in need. But you have to be a climber. You cannot sit idly by and let your possessions and wealth accumulate, or, like weeds, they will take over. They will take over your life. You will end up building bigger and bigger barns and never experience the joy of sharing and helping build a vibrant church for all. Yet for a climber, such obstacles are a challenge and never a dead end. Rather than slowly allowing your possessions to accumulate and sink roots in your life and demand more of your care at the expense of your relationships with others, you instead manage your wealth to strengthen your relationships with your family, your friends, and your church. This is the power of pledging. Pledging is a concrete step to put your faith into action. Pledging puts your material wealth where it belongs, under your control and service to Christ as you share God's blessings. Pledging is an exercise of faith where you reflect on your resources, prayerfully consider your priorities, and then share with the church what you plan to give based on your trust that God will provide. Trust, then, is the foundation of pledging. Not only trust in God, but also trust in yourself and in the church. A church that pledges is a church that is built on trust. First of all, a pledge is a statement of faith that God will provide either through you as planned or through other means, should your circumstances change. Further, a pledge is a statement of faith that you will support the church unconditionally. In a time where people, even church members, often wait to see if things go their way before they support or offer support, a pledge is a statement of faith that you can be trusted to give through thick and thin. Hand in hand with this, a pledge is also a statement of faith in the church and its leadership, both the session and its committee. Pledging, then, puts trust first and builds relationships in the church based on that trust. Of course, when Zacchaeus made his pledge, he was making restitution for his sins. His pledge was a visible sign to the community of faith, to his community of faith, that he was indeed a changed person. Your pledge is also a visible sign, but for different reasons. It is a sign for you that you are indeed a freed person who is truly master over his or her resources. And taken together, our pledges are a visible sign of trust that instills confidence in the leadership of the church that you will go where the Spirit will lead. So, for those of you who have or will soon make your pledge, thank you. Your pledge is a sign of your trust in God and the church, and a sign of your commitment. In a world where people often seem to want to date God and keep their options open, such commitment is refreshing and empowering. For like Zacchaeus, you too can become a blessing to your community if you become such a climber who overcomes the need to acquire with the desire to share. Remember, you don't have to be wealthy to pledge. You simply have to value people more than material possessions and gain, and pledge what you feel led to give to serve Christ. Let all God's people say,